is being recorded. Is there anybody out there who's recording the meeting that we need to know about? If so, please raise your hand and let me know. Okay, doesn't look like it, thanks. So first order of business is the approval of meeting minutes from September 16th, 2021. Any comments on the minutes?
No, move to approve. George.
George moves to approve.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Oh, just a quick order of business. You're taking notes, Emily?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to do the roll call. I forgot to do that, but I'll do it now. So Charles Roberts, chairperson, I'm here. Emily Esch.
Here.
Natty Hussey.
Present.
George Shalumpsis.
Here.
And Mark Maloney is absent, and Amy McMahon, alternate, is absent as well. So first order of business is the ZBA recommendation of Sunbug Solar, WM LCC, for property located at 75 Prospect Street, Assessors map 53, lot 11, which is posted in the Urban Residential RA zoning district for a special permit pursuant to sections 204.4 C19, 208.3, and 208.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to allow the installation of 11.745 kilowatt DC ground-mounted solar PV array, 66 panels at this location. So this is for a ZBA recommendation. Is the applicant here to present the project? If you could introduce yourself, and please do so.
Yes, I'm Chris. Sunbug Solar.
Oh, Chris, you're not really coming in here.
1 second. Let me just check the mic.
Yeah.
How's that?
There we are.
So
That
it's
better?
a little better. You might want to get in close to your mic. Maybe you're just not getting a good signal
no,
from the mic.
It's something that must be setting in WebEx.
It's not working, Chris. Sorry. Maybe you could try logging off and logging back in. Do you have your mute button's not on, is it?
How's everyone doing?
Good. Thanks for asking. Yeah,
We're a lively bunch.
this is the vagaries of.
Very well, thanks. I'm totally here, but I'm logging off my video because I just got back from a long bike ride and I'm stretching.
Oh, okay.
And I finished up with doing all the site visits on my bike.
Yeah, right. So, Chris, you're back. Have you found your voice?
Let's try it. How's that?
Oh, much better. Thank you.
gonna say, I think it was a permission. I had some, 'cause I haven't used WebEx in a while, and I think I had some block, some control
Okay.
in that.
All right, well, you have the floor.
Okay, so I'm Chris Kreisman with Sunbug Solar, and we've got sort of a parking canopy, timber frame parking canopy solar
Right.
project that we're hoping to get within the 10-foot setbacks.
Did you have any information to share on the screen or anything?
Sure. Did you all? I wasn't sure if you all had access to the docs I gave to Eric or not. You do. Okay.
Yeah, we were mailed a package that has your site plan and sort of the SketchUp model of the carport. So
yeah.
Any description of the process or what you're asking for, or just any kind of clarification that will help us sort of think about this, or we could just launch right into asking questions if you don't.
Sure. Yeah. You want to try and? I've got the documents open. I was looking to share, but it would be similar. I'd use the same. Sort of probably the plan view is maybe the most useful.
Okay.
And I've got a satellite image, not the scale on that doc. I can.
All right. I think if you go down to the bottom of the screen, in the middle, there's a button called Share, and if you click on that, I don't think I need to give you permission. I think you can just share away.
There we
go.
go. So our hope aesthetically, if you see where the driveway comes in and kicks over, we sort of did some on the ground walkthroughs where we came in 10 feet to the overhangs. So we'll have the footing's going to be a 6-post timber frame, traditional style timber frame site, on site. We couldn't come up with the aesthetics of it just were not clean if we pushed it to, if you're looking at the drawing to the left, which would be to the west.
Right.
It just, the way it conformed with the driveway was just it was not a favorable look, especially when you're driving from the driveway side. So that's when I approached Eric and was like, hey, we need to encroach on the 10-foot setback if possible.
So, okay. So you're in the what you're asking for is a special permit for a ground-mounted solar array. Correct?
Yes. I mean, it's a carp. Yes. Yeah.
But what you're really asking for is a special permit for dimensional relief, so you can build a 600 square foot carport encroaching on the 10-foot setback.
That's right. Yep.
And then, so because it's not really, it's a language, it's a semantic thing, but it's not really a ground-mounted array. It's a solar array mounted on the roof of a carport, and there's a difference between those two things, right?
That's right. And I think the semantics, if I remember, it's been a little while, but I think it was sort of the options were limited to that. I don't think there was a special category to permit it as a parking canopy.
Yeah, but it seems like you could have carported it as a building that encroaches on the setback within the 20% tolerance that you can get a special permit from the ZBA for, and then you could just put your PV on top of that. But so does the folks understand the process? What's going
there
on?
is, there are some technically, from the client's perspective and legally, they want it to be it doesn't matter to you all, but for other reasons. And then we did this with West County Equipment Rental, and theirs too had a similar issue where specifically, even though that's a carport there as well, that we specifically permitted it as.
But you'll need to get you'll get a building permit for that structure, and it'll be permitted
yep.
as a car. It'll be permitted as a carport, I would think.
Well, if it follows history, I think we permitted the most recent one I can think of is of that West County equipment, and where it was. My memory is we went through the process as a canopy because the solar drove the whole. They wouldn't be doing this without the solar. The only reason they're doing this canopy is to have a place to put their solar system.
But they're going to park their cars under it in the wintertime.
Yep, that's right.
George?
Yeah, I'd have the same consideration that you're talking about, Charles, because I know we've talked before about the ground-mounted solar requiring a special permit being a conservative approach that the city council took. And I would, so you wouldn't need a special permit if it was going on the roof of the house. And a carport, if there weren't the dimensional aspects, that would be allowed by right, I believe.
Right.
So I'd hate to set a precedent that if you want to build a carport or something like that, or if you have an existing one, that you need to get a special permit for the solar element. Because we're trying to, according to the master plan, encourage alternative sources of energy. So if there doesn't have to be a barrier or extra steps or something like that, I'd not like to set a precedent for it. That's my perspective.
Right. And I think, thanks, George. I think that, the ZBA will be granting a special permit for this, and I think that we could address that in however we decide to word our recommendation, positive or negative, to the ZBA at this point. I think that's a good point. Anybody else from the board have any comments or questions? I just have one question, Chris. So I'm looking at the SketchUp drawing here, and I assume that's the north elevation.
That's right. Yep.
So what you would be looking at is there's a 7'6" height from that from the ground to the bottom of that lower beam, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's correct.
So it's counterintuitive for folks. It makes sense. The roof's got to slope south for the PV. So this isn't actually the way you would be viewing it as you approach it. You're going to be viewing it from the low side.
That's right. Your viewing side will be of the solar system.
Right.
So your aesthetically, as you approach it from the street, will be exactly that, Charles. It'll be coming head on to the solar array will be sloped toward you.
Right. George?
So, that would often be the case for solar mounted on top of a roof of a house as well.
Right. It's interesting because, there are solar canopies like the one for that in that school that was renovated into apartments, a kitty corner from Foster's, and there's it's not a carport, it's a canopy that's used as a carport. So this to me seems like a carport that's used as a solar, but so it's interesting, isn't it? Sort of how we phrase this.
Yeah, I think from coming in with a conservative perspective was that for Wolf Cools, the only reason they're doing canopy was for solar.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. They weren't
going to build a carport.
The canopy is just a byproduct of wanting to have the solar system.
Right.
What they did is they recently moved and had a solar array for several years, and we're like, we need to find a way to do this here on a limited lot.
Yep. And so you can fit 60 panels on that roof?
No, there are 27.
Oh, somewhere I read 66 panels.
I think, I think that got crossed somewhere with the cell count,
Oh,
which you don't care about. Solar
No,
industry is
no,
undergoing this cell change thing, which is rippling through.
yeah.
I want to make just a request. If someone has something to say, can we utilize the raised hand option, which if you
Yes.
click the participant option, you can then go and raise your hand. It's kind of counterintuitive. It's not right there on the bottom, but that way we're not necessarily jumping over each other. With that said,
Where's the raised hand thing?
if you
Maddie,
go to the bottom right of your screen, there should be a participants button.
Yeah.
That it has all of your options. If you go to yourself, there's a raised hand option.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So why don't you demonstrate, Natty, by raising your hand, and then I will know.
Okay, I just
Natty,
raised it.
you have the floor.
Thank you. I notice that this proposed array is not situated over the driveway. I would assume that the intent would be to park vehicles underneath it. With that said, is there the intent to pave the existing area that would be under the port? Are we? I understand that Sunbug is not doing that, but are we aware of that? I guess more a question to the board.
It looks like Chris popped off the screen here.
He said,
That's
Yes.
a good question.
answering that question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and I don't think Chris can necessarily answer it. The other would be just a review of some satellite imagery here, and based on their plan, the driveway is already outside or within the 10-foot setback. So in actuality, this array does not go any further towards the property line than the driveway already does. It's actually shy of that, of the
Right.
driveway.
But it is a 600 square foot structure that's 12 feet out of the ground at its highest, and it's within a couple feet. It's close to the adjacent homes.
Yeah, that was my next question is, has there been any comment from neighbors as to that plan? Have they been, or this plan, I should say, and have they been approached?
Well, I think it's a special permit. There had to be a mailing to all neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume they've been apprised of the situation, and if they're not here, and that it'll be up to the ZBA to screen that conversation. I think. That's a good point, though. Chris, did you hear Natty's question? You may or may not know this. If there is going to be parking underneath that canopy, is there any kind of paving or gravel drive or alteration so it's a drivable surface?
The plan is for us, when we do our site work, just for the footings, there'll be screws or I can't remember if they're
Helical piles?
or yeah. But we'll just leave it prepped, and next year at some point in the future they're going to do so we'll leave the site sort of prepped, but not do any of the finishing, whether asphalt or crushed stone or anything like that. So
Okay.
they'll take that up next season when it's as a different scope.
Okay. Any more comments from folks? Are we ready to make a motion one way or the other here?
All right, yeah, I will make a motion to give a positive recommendation to the EDA.
Second.
Any further discussion? George?
Yeah, I would like to, if the board is in agreement, I would like to add a comment that it doesn't seem that this is requiring a special permit for the ground mounted aspect.
Yeah, it seems like it's a special permit for dimensional relief on the carport.
If Emily is comfortable with adding that to the motion.
I'm typing as fast as I can, George.
But it's up to you since you're the mover.
Oh, so are you asking to add it to the motion, subject to us noting
Well-
that it is not seeming to require a special permit for ground mounted?
It could be in the motion, or it could be, if it's not in the motion, it may not get passed along to the ZBA.
Well,
my experience.
the ground mounted solar arrays are a special permit regardless, but you're saying, so it's not to say that we're requiring a special permit for a roof mounted array.
Right. This doesn't seem to be a ground mounted array, as you originally said, Charles.
Right.
I would want to comment on that. And if it's the will of the board, I just wanted to suggest we include that.
Okay. So then I will remake my motion to forward a positive recommendation to the ZBA and make sure to note that we are not requiring a special permit for a ground mounted, that this is for the roof solar project.
It's for dimensional relief for the carport.
Okay.
That's our impression or opinion.
I second that amended motion.
All right.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 All right. It's unanimous, so no need for a roll call. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Good luck with the ZBA. They're a good group.
Yep. Have a good evening.
Yep.
You
You
too.
too.
Thanks.
Take care. Next up, site plan review of community action of Pioneer Valley Inc. for property located at 95 River Street, Assessors tax map 33 lot 10, which is located in the GC zoning district for site plan pursuant to sections 204.9 B8 and 208.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to allow the redevelopment of the former Red Barn grocery to consolidate its program to one location. The building use will change from being a grocery store to being used as offices, a food pantry, dry cold storage, etc. Proposed improvements include a new accessible entry, patio, parking areas, loading areas, lighting, landscaping, and utility services. Tony, I see you on my screen. So I guess what we'll do here is, if you want to just walk us through the project, Tony, we may ask questions along the way. I have some correspondence I'll read into the record. We have a report from the Accessibility Greenfield folks. I don't know if you're going to address that or not, Tony, but if you do or don't, we'll discuss that as well, and then we'll deliberate and take a vote. So
Excellent.
you're on, Tony.
Excellent. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Tony, just for the record, can I just confirm that you are Anthony? Can you say your last name for me, please?
Wonseski, Wonseski,
Great.
engineer with SVE Associates.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Mark Stednecki, who is an engineer working with me on this project, is also on this evening. So, Mr. Chairman, if you want to share your screen, share with Mark, and he can go ahead and kind of point as we go through the plans and describe the project. So I'll do the talking, he'll do the pointing. And
Okay.
also, I believe Elaine Davenport from Community Action of Pioneer Valley is also on, so she can talk more about the specifics on how the facility will be used and so forth. I'm very excited to bring this to the planning board. As you said, this is in a general commercial zone. And this would allow them to consolidate a number of their services to one location. As you know, living in Greenfield, they have numerous areas where they operate out of. And so I think this is quite exciting for them. As you know, the Red Barn property, it's about 5.29 acres in size. And what you're looking at right now is the existing conditions plan. And as we do with every site when we go out and survey it, and this property had a boundary survey on it, so we're able to tie to that. we look at some of the other environmental things. And so, we checked the floodplain mapping here, and this property, although close to the river, is not within a special flood hazard zone, and it's also not in Massachusetts Endangered Species Act habitat area. So those areas are clear. What we did do also is have Ward Smith from Wendell Wetland Services go out and review the property, because we have some history in the area. We worked initially with the fairgrounds, which is right above us, on some of their slope failures on a couple areas. And so we know that there's wetlands at the toe of this slope, and Ward was able to identify those, and we surveyed those, and those are shown on the plan and located. They're essentially outside the area to the south, and there's a swale and wetland, boarding vegetated wetland in those areas. So we identified the most inner or most constrained limits of those to the project.
Excuse me, Tony, so did you go to the Concom for that?
No, actually, we are going next Tuesday to them. We have a site visit with them on next Tuesday, and then we'll have that meeting in the evening with them.
Okay.
Okay.
Charles, I apologize. You said, sorry, just for the minutes, you said, did you go to the what?
Conservation
Commission.
Thank you.
We're within 100 feet of those delineated wetlands. So that requires us to go before the Conservation Commission for not only state act, but also local City of Greenfield regulations. Right. So yeah.
So there'll be an order of conditions set up on this.
That's correct.
On this site.
That's correct. There will be. Yeah. They're just looking at improvements. We're not going to extend improvements closer to just so you know, it's not something that you really probably care about, but we would not be extending the limits of the degraded area towards the wetlands more than what they are existing. So the limits of the parking, which are mostly employee parking on the west side, that kind of that satellite lot, that's mostly going to, those edges will stay where they are. And then the ring road, or the one way out of what used to be the Red Barn to the south, that edge, southerly edge, will remain the limits of our work.
But you'll be like improving that road and grading and paving, so there'll be some kind of like protection fence along there and everything.
Absolutely. And there is an erosion control plan part of the set. I'll talk more about that as we go
great
through.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
Yeah, the historic area, obviously when you're doing development, the Red Barn built in the flat portion of the existing property, and we're going to maintain that. So moving on a little bit more with existing, this, according to the assessors, the finished floor area of the existing property is 13,240 square feet, and it has currently loading areas on 3 sides of the building. The west side, southwest side, there's an existing loading area. There's the major primary loading area is on the south side. There's a concrete loading dock area plus a roof over the top of that area. And there's also a small loading area on the east side, which fronts River Street. And it looks like they tried to, at one time years ago, you can see that there's a blocked out door where they got to the second story, and there's also a ground level. There's a small basement area that's still functional, and we will use it for storage in the proposed use. As mentioned in the staff report, the project meets all the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance, except on the back westerly side, where that property corner from that residential lot comes in. It's only 23 feet off, which would be a non-compliant dimension. We're required to have 25 feet. So, we're just pointing that out. No, the structure won't grow. It's not going to affect that. So that non-compliance will stay with our improvements. The property is served by water, sewer, and storm drain services that are currently located in River Street. And there's also electric, gas, natural gas, and communication services there that serve the property. And we'll use most of that, but we will make some upgrades to those. Currently, there's 3 curb cuts along River Street serving the property. The most northerly one is a one-way entrance where the main entrance on this building for the grocery store use was on the north side. So customers come in, and if there was available parking in that steep area, they would angle park there and then get into the store. And then overflow parking would be back on that westerly lot along with employee parking back there. And so as a one-way in, you'd go out and you'd go all the way around the ring road and then back out to River Street. There is that middle curb cut, which is close to the southerly side, which I'm assuming, I don't recall how all of that worked, but I don't think that you were driving tractors along and around that one way. They wouldn't be able to make that turn around the corner. So they must have come in, pulled on the street and backed into that portion of the gravel area and then got to the major loading docks. That is my my belief in that area. That whole area in there is covered with weeds right now, and there's piles of gravel, and there are still some old trailers in that area, but it's essentially gravel with weeds that have grown up in that area. There is an off-site concern that we have to continue to maintain on the south side next to that exit driveway. There is an existing right-of-way to an abutting property, and they're allowed to use that, and we will maintain that as it is today. So we're aware of that. The existing ADA parking on the north side of the building, which was used for the main entrance, is really not compliant with current standards. And so, and it's mainly due to grade. That entrance up into that driveway fairly far into the site is too steep for ADA parking. There are 3 tall light poles on the exterior of the site. There's 3 of them, 2 on the main parking area as you come in, 1 in the back parking lot, and then 1 about middle way on the exiting drive. These are either Cobra lights or pretty substantial floodlights. I haven't been able to actually see them at night. I don't recall driving through there, on River Street what they were, because I think when the past owner left that building, I think they shut those off. So I have no reference as far as that, what they look like. As you mentioned, there was some comments to our proposed developments from the Greenfield Commission on Disability Access, and we can go through those after we finish the presentation. So if, Mark, you can go to the proposed site plan. We can go ahead and look at that and kind of describe what our proposal for community action is here. The overall footprint of the building is not going to change. That loading dock and roof coverage over the dock area, there was an outside cooler there, those are going to be demolished and removed. Those will not be part of the overall proposed use of this facility. As mentioned in the legal of our notice, community action has primarily, if you looked at the floor plan, it's numerous offices because they do a lot of things electrical. I mean, Elaine can get into the more specifics on all of the services that they provide to the community, but they also have dry storage, dry cold storage, and they have a small grocery area, food bank kind of operation, I believe. There is a small learning kitchen in the plan, and so this will allow them to consolidate many of their services, and all of their main work and where customers will be on that floor. The basement level, like I said, is mechanical. It's custodial closet and some storage for records and other miscellaneous storage. As I mentioned, presently there's one-way access into the site from the northerly side and then access around and down. There are 3 curb cuts. We're going to eliminate the middle one and we're going to widen the southerly access. So the northerly access, as you come in, it'll still be one way, and we'd sign that as employee entrance. That's not where we want the customers to go, although they could travel through that and come around to the south and get into the main parking areas. We're adding, I believe, 35 parking spaces to this. You can see the new parking area, and then we're going to be parking off of the widened drive. So the southerly entrance will be two-way traffic. There'll be do not enter, so you can't go to the north around the corner of the building, which is very tight. Off the edge of the pavement, that area drops down, I don't know significantly, but 4 to 5 feet down to the property line. There's a fence and pretty dense vegetation along that northerly property line, which will ultimately be cleaned up and just make more presentable for the project. But the fencing and some of the good vegetation in that area will remain as screening. As I said, the middle curb will be removed, and we're also adding 4 ADA parking spaces close to what we consider will be providing is a hardscape patio in that area. The 4 ADA spaces will allow direct access to the ramping up into the main entrance. People that park in the middle parking area there will have ramp access up and also stair access to a new main entry into the facility. On that patio, we're showing some tables and some umbrellas. We see those as temporary, movable seating areas. And we thought that that would be appropriate for customers, also for employees if they wanted to go outside and sit and have lunch. And we're also going to provide quite a bit more landscaping, lawn areas, and you'll see we have some islands in between the parking and more landscaping in front. We're going to plant shade trees. We didn't identify those on the plan, but in keeping with what Greenfield's doing in town, they would be, something like honey locust, ginkgos, oaks, maples, and then there's a potential, well, we're not positive on this, but I would like to see a few ornamentals up in the main area between the patio and the parking area, maybe some Kosa dogwoods or cherry plums, but we're trying to keep the maintenance on landscape down for them, but obviously they have the opportunity, community action, to do some annual planter beds in that if they wish. A couple areas that come to mind which would be appropriate would be along the north side of that internal parking up against the building, and also if we reduce the patio area up against the building, there could be a strip of some annual plantings in there, spireas, ornamental grasses. Those are on the south side, so you can get some good sunlight, maybe some lilies, things of that nature. But it depends on them and as far as their maintenance and so forth. And I'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about some of the suggestions from the Disability Commission. The existing sewer lateral for this building, we plan on using that for servicing this building. The water lateral is currently, we're going to abandon that per city standards, and we actually going to supply our tie into the main and bring in a new 2-inch domestic line. And right now it's preliminarily sized for a 4-inch fire service, bringing that into the building. There will be some new and improved drainage in this area. A lot of that gravel area is fairly flat. There's ponding areas in that, but once we do this work, we're going to put in some catch basins. There'll be a new dry well, and we'll be tying to the municipal system. They're on the site plan on the main entrance in the 2-way where we're going to widen. You're going to see an identification for a freestanding sign. this would be the business sign, and it's the intention at this point from Community Action to go ahead and do a sign that meets the zoning ordinance, the freestanding portion of the zoning ordinance. So we would go to the building department for approval for that. If there was anything outside of that, we would have to come back to the board for a special permit. And then lastly, what I think is important, and you'll see an insert down in the bottom, which we put in, we thought it would be a good idea to at least plan for the opportunity to have a bus stop at the frontage of the facility, where that existing middle curb cut is. We're going to landscape that now, just lawn, and make that appropriate there, similar, to city standards. But there's an opportunity at some point, if the FRTA can find that it warrants a demand to provide that, then there is available space there to do a bus stop and also to widen the concrete walk there and do a bus shelter. So we wanted to have at least plan that and have a spot for it in case it ever comes to reality, which we think is, in our opinion, would be a good enhancement to the property. And I think that's just a general overview of what the plan is. Seems to work pretty well, and Community Action, I really likes it, and I think that it's working with what we have. We've tried to fit in parking wise and accessibility pedestrian wise. Oh, I forgot to mention that there are also two bicycle racks, one in the lower parking area and one at the main entrance by the patio, which we've put in. So customers and employees who want to travel to work or to get service, they have that opportunity also. So I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much. And we're available for any questions that the board might have.
Thanks, Tony. George?
Yes. Hi, Tony. There was something that was sent, I think, today about traffic. And I believe Eric, a little while ago, sent us something. I didn't have a chance to access it. I wonder if you could walk us through that.
Yes, I can do that. I didn't provide an actual traffic impact statement on this because just intuitively to me, the grocery store will have much more significant impact traffic-wise than the office building. But Eric did reach out to me this morning and told me that you had raised that concern. So I went through and prepared a statement that was sent to you. And essentially what I did, I don't have any real good information on the Red Barn, except for when my wife and I used to go there to shop, and but nothing formal. And so I went to the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. We have the 8th edition in the office, and the closest land coast uses that I could find was a discount supermarket, which was a land use code 854. And there's a range because it's a statistical analysis that they use to come up with this. And I used the gross floor footage from the property card at 13,240. And because the range, and I'm looking at this store, I used the lower range, the lowest range of the data that they had collected, because the Red Barn is fairly small, and just based on experience going there, the numbers I was getting, if I were to use the average, seemed a little exorbitant. So I used a small range, and I came up with still some pretty high numbers. Week daily 909, AM peak hour 14, which would make sense having it be small because the store really didn't open until 9 o'clock, and the a typical peak hour is from 7 to 9 in the morning when people are going to work. Weekday PM hour was quite high. It was 81. Saturday daily, this seems really high to me, but 1172, and Saturday peak hour would be 107. So even with the lower range, I think that's fairly high, but you can see a dramatic drop for an office use. And I used, just general office, the land use code of 710. And I did it two ways. I did it by the gross square footage, which I use the same, and then also by employees. We're anticipating 42 employees to be at this facility. So if you use the actual gross floor square footage came up higher. So I used the middle of the range, and at 1,000 square foot weekday daily, I was only getting 146, AM peak hour 21, weekday peak hour PM 20. Saturday, which probably won't be used much, would be 31, and then Saturday peak hour is only 5. So it's a significant drop, but and I provided the board with the data, and I think you would expect that just in the different land uses. So I apologize. I probably should have sent that in with the original portion of the submittal, but I did provide that, and I also provided the board with a parking analysis, which by code, I'm going from memory here because I don't have it in front of me. I think we came up with, based on section 206.5, 31 spaces required for the use. In actuality, we're projecting 42 employees and a potential for 36 customers. Now, most of those customers won't drive there individually. But if you were just to look at that, we would need 78 spaces. We have 79. So we meet it there also. And both of those were supplied to Eric and to the board. And we also recently, because it took a little while to get the photometric plan, I forwarded that to Eric. The photometric plan was first run using, the heights of the existing poles, and those fixture units are pretty high up on the pole. I don't know, but they're definitely over 20 feet. They're quite high. They're on wood telephone poles. There's a couple of them are floodlights, and a couple are the old citywide Cobra heads. So I had to have the electric engineer run them again and set them at 15. We'll have our pole or fixture heights will be at 15. And the other thing I wanted to mention, if you look at the photometric plan, there's a little bit of splash on the north side, which crosses the property line. She cannot run it with the screening, which would prevent that. So the fixtures that we're using allow you to block that. And I told Eric that if the board had concerns, just add that as a condition that those will be screened so that you won't get splashed back to the north, that it will only cover the parking areas. So we made those adjustments to be within the ordinance, and we got proper coverage, and we are not impacting really River Street or abutting properties.
Is it possible just to zoom in on that northern boundary just so I can see what those foot candle levels are there on that edge you were just referring to? I remember seeing all zeros.
Yeah, no, it's a little, but you can see the ISO bars there where they kind of stick over the property line, but that's modeled without the shield on the backside to block it from going that direction. So
I see. Oh, I was reading that blue line as the property line, but that's the.
Yeah, no, that's just the area of study.
Right.
Yeah, so it's actually closer. So you get not very much. It's like 0.1 or 0.2 over the line. I forget what that ISO bar is, but it'll be shielded. She just can't. She told me that she can't run it with the shield. She has to run it like that. But it'll be blocked so it doesn't. And if you think about it, if you think about the floodlights and you think about the Cobras being very high with nothing shielding it, I would imagine, I can't say positively because the lights were shut down and I couldn't actually physically go out and look at it, but it would make sense to me that you're going to get some splash to the north with those existing lights when they were utilized. So we're trying to accommodate our neighbors to the north. There's no doubt about that.
Eric sent through several lighting cuts. Is it, could you show us the one that's going to be on those poles?
It's like an LED shoebox, but Mark, were you able to get that? Because it came in late and I sent it to you by phone, on my phone. Should have been a cut sheet that I sent most recently. It was after 5 o'clock, I believe. Should be in an email. Those are pictures of the existing. It may have not come through to him. Yeah, it's something like that, and that can be shielded. I'm not sure if that's the exact one, but it's pretty close to that if that's not the exact one.
So that would be mounted on a 15-foot pole?
That's right, or mounted on the existing pole, but at a height of no taller than 15 feet.
So how does the shield work? Is that something that happens inside
It
the
just-
lens, or
Yeah,
that
well,
something that gets?
It happens in the fixture unit so that it can't direct out. It has to direct out to the parking. It can't backflash back. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So stormwater drainage, you're adding impervious surface where you're putting in that sort of central parking, right? On the south side of the building. I mean, is it all surface draining to catch basins? There's no. You may have addressed this and I missed it, but how's the stormwater drainage working again, Tony?
It collects in catch basins in the parking area, and then it's directed to an inlet. There's a major inlet in the right of way that crosses and goes to the property to the north to the river. And in front of that, there's an existing dry well, which we're going to remove and replace in that loading area and fronting River Street. So you would think that we would be increasing runoff here, but we're actually increasing the amount of impervious area with this development. And, gravel, hard packed gravel to impervious, there's not much of a coefficient of friction factor difference. So we're actually very close to what the right of way is experiencing in both conditions. So, I mean, when you look at the picture of what we're doing, you would think, oh my God, you're really increasing the flow. But that's not the case when you actually run the numbers and look at the thing. And Mark can speak more to it because he's done the design. We're actually reducing a very small, if looking at that table. I don't know if you can see that on the board.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much, I would say, it's so hard to calculate that stuff to an exact. It's not like designing a steel beam to deflect. There's so many variables in this, but we can pretty confidently say that we're trying our best to get it as close as possible to what is happening there today.
Intuitively, that seems right. Just looking at the site plan and your landscaped areas and what's there now.
Right.
I mean, there's all those, There's all those.
I mean, it's hard packed and leaves and weeds and yeah.
So what's going to be the paving material at that terrace off of the accessible parking spaces?
I would think that it would be some sort of a hard surface. So that you can clean it well in the winter. You can. I just think it is a hard surface. I'm not advocating pavement. I think it should be some sort of a concrete hard surface.
Okay.
That's what we have right now. I'm not saying that it couldn't change, but it's calculated to be a hard surface. And we envision those tables and that as umbrellas and, just basic tables like you would have as in your, your backyard, just to provide seating for folks if the weather is great. I mean, they would probably go down in storage in the basement in the winter, but in the summer and good months, I mean, it provides some outdoor space for customers, employees to get outside if they, for lunch or whatever, or if they're waiting to do something.
Any other questions or comments from the board? George, did you have anything else?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to, just a couple of comments first. I appreciate how the vision of that patio space will be such a transformation from the current condition of the site. The site, it's a challenging site. So I appreciate the aspirations. And I also want to commend the planners, your planners and community action for the anticipating the potential of a bus stop. Because when we did the city master plan a number of years ago, though obviously the FRTA, public transit, is not part of the city, we envisioned it as an essential public utility. So especially for a site like this, and for folks who would be utilizing this, that seems far good to envision that and make that possible for future negotiations. But I also want to ask, I think you alluded to it, Tony, the Commission on Disability Access had a number of questions and recommendations, and I was interested in hearing your responses to those.
Yes, I think, did you want to read any of that into the record and go one by one with that? Or did you want me to just?
Well, I mean, I think.
How did you want to approach that?
Well, I think I'm pretty sure this document is submitted into the record.
Okay.
But I think that we could discuss these issues. I mean, there's 4 or 5 issues.
Yeah.
That were here. The first one they were talking about was the accessible parking there to the south.
Right.
And
right.
they were talking about all those multiple sidewalk ramps and and talking about the idea of having the parking flush with that patio and using bollards as sort of any thoughts on that?
Well, no, I think I wanted to gauge the board. I mean, I've looked at a concept design that could do that, and we can do that. I'm just wondering what the board, we haven't done that except for my design on tissue, but I think it's very doable, and I just didn't want to do that without hearing from the board and what their thoughts were. It's not going to add any cost to the project to do that. I mean, we have the tactile strips, an extension of that. We would only do that in front of the ADA parking, and then we would ramp up to the original walks by the island and that. But that's very doable. And so we have a curb where the ramps are now. What I would do is take that curb and push it back towards the building, and then create a little landscaped area there, where they could plant, like I was saying, they could plant some annuals there, would be low maintenance, and bring in a little bit of visual greenery from the building to the patio. So I think it's really doable. And what we have there, one of the questions where I think we confused them a little bit because we didn't dimension the striping, and our detail is a little bit different, but we had envisioned four van spaces there, although we probably would not sign them that way. We would sign 2 of them, and the other 2 would be just regular ADA spaces, but they would have the widened aisle, just to allow for a little more access there, because we have the space to do it. So, it's just trying to get a feel from the board before we go ahead and change that plan, but we can do that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Let me see. Does any Natty or Emily, do you have any thoughts or comments about that, or George? I mean,
I just have a question. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
That's okay.
Have a question for the notes. I missed when you were talking about the ramps. There's a specific term.
The ADA accessible ramps.
Accessible. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think that it's a cleaner solution. It also eliminates, I mean, when you think about it, at that point where you have the landing that goes to the ramp, there's a 6-inch step down from the patio to that landing, and there's like several, so and you have a few of those. So each one of those seems like a potential trip fall kind of situation. And by eliminating all those, it seems to make it much cleaner and more readily accessible.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I didn't want to make the change and without hearing from the board on what their thoughts were. I thought it was a good idea. And so we can do it. We've done an initial design on it. We'll just have to, what will happen is there are some comments. We haven't made those or addressed those. What we would do is make those changes to the plan and then resubmit the plan to Eric for the record. So
wouldn't you have to warp that patio down to that low point somehow?
Yeah, but it's all of those grades in there are like 1.5 to 1.7%. They're all ADA accessible, and I get rid of the curb by shoving the curb up against the building. So I just lower that.
Yeah,
it works fine.
Okay.
And I just return the curb at that landing that we have for the ramp coming up out of the lower parking lot up to the main entrance. I'll just return the curb there, and that'll leave like a 5-foot strip in there for planting up against the building.
Yeah, I think that's nice.
Yeah, I think it'll look nice. Yeah, because it'll add a little bit of green space from the building, kind of break that up.
Yeah.
The reason why we did that is just to keep it flat all the way up to the building, but we just move grade a little bit, and it all works fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing that's a positive. So that was something that we would do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that from the experience at the community senior center, I think it's a very effective design. So sounds great.
A lot of times you can't do that, but in this case we can.
Yep.
So
Great.
I tend to agree, and it was an excellent comment from them. So
yeah, they had an advisory identification comment. Required van accessible designation signs is intended to be informative, not restrictive.
Right. So we would do, like I said, we would do it on 2 of them. The other ones, even though they got the widened aisle, we probably wouldn't put it on those, but we could. It's not a big deal, I just don't want to restrict from it there. But a lot of people would look at that and they would think it's restrictive. So that's why I would just sign 2 of them and leave the other 2 as regular. But
right. So I personally think it's okay just to sort of leave those accessible lanes the way you have them, and they seem to be fine with that also. Yeah, no, they seem to be okay with it. So, and then I think their next comment was something about a designated path, but I think if we lower everything and give people the opportunity to go wherever they want within that accessible area up to the ramp to get up to the main entry, I think that comment goes away. I wouldn't want to do that anyways. And like I said, the tables are temporary and they can be moved however they want to. So it just opens up a multitude of accessible paths to that thing. So I think we're good there. Handrails. I saw handrails on the building elevations, so I think they're in the design, right? And we just note it. We don't show details for that because it's really the architects. You guys kind of do those, but you'll see that pros ADA ramp with handrails. We know it, but we don't give the details on that. Yeah. Automatic door openers. That's a little bit.
I want to go back real quick to the grading that we were just discussing. I think it's pertinent to mention from an accessibility perspective, a snow removal perspective, and a maintenance of the parking area and curb. It makes more sense to do what is being proposed now than to have the curb that is originally in this plan. So keeping all of that in mind, I also toss my hat in the ring and say, yes, let's make that change to the plan.
Okay.
Accessible park.
I'm not sure I get the snow removal maintenance conundrum, but
ease of snow removal. makes it easier. If you've worked for a landscaping company before and you deal with a plow and then you have to snow blow the sidewalk, but then you have snow left next to the curb, this actually makes it easier. You have a shovel that goes right around the actual concrete block there, and the plow takes everything else away. So to make sure that there is regular access for handicapped in that handicap accessible area, having that type of setup in a fairly restricted area for snow removal makes a lot of sense.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's unanimous. I don't know if that whole patio would be opened up in the winter, but I think, you know, because it won't, nobody will be using it, you know, so it'll have a pretty wide path through the landing, but, you know, some of that area is where they'll probably store snow plus the lawn area to the east. So I think we've got plenty of storage area there for snow, and I think it's just, I totally agree. It's going to work out great. The only stumbling blocks are the signs, and you can work around those. So.
Automatic door openers. It was unclear to commissioners whether the entrance door has an automatic opener. While not an ADA requirement, it is recommended for the main public entrance and at least one employee entrance.
I think if there's a concern of that of the board, we just, because that's an architectural thing, not
Right.
probably at this detail for a land development permit, but get it in the condition if the board is concerned with it, and then the architects can make sure that gets in for construction and building permit.
Right. I guess we could sort of gauge, we can deliberate on that when we get to that point. Handicapped employee parking. Are handicapped parking spaces planned on the employee side of the building?
I'm not planning on doing it there because it's so steep, and it really gets very tight at that corner area. I mean, we could probably do something in a parallel space, but I'm not inclined to do that just because employees walking from that lot, they'll walk along a marked, which they've done. I mean, Red Barn, the same thing to get you into that main door there. So I'm hesitant to put too much stuff there because I want good, clear vision for walkers going in and any vehicles coming around that corner. It's fairly tight, so they have to slow down. But I think if we have employees that are that require and customers and community action finds that the 4 spaces are not enough, then what we would probably do is go down to that lower middle lot and add them there. We'd probably lose parking, but we could pick up some in the island if we needed to. I think this is one where we meet the code. I think we leave it the way it is, and we let community action see what really happens in the real world.
Yeah. Okay. Future bus stop. The drop-in illustration on sheet 3 of the permit set shows proposed improvements for future bus stop. The commission approves of creating a nearby bus stop, since now the closest one is a 4-minute walk from 95 River Street at the Yankee Mattress Store. The commission will need to weigh in during future discussions about an accessible bus shelter and whether there's room for a corresponding shelter on the opposite side of the street. If so, there would need to be a pedestrian activated crossing light. Commissioners understand that those discussions would likely be with FRTA, Greenfield Public Works, rather than community action in Pioneer Valley. So that's informational more than anything else, I think, for us at this point. So I would think that the overall response to this review from Disability Commission Greenfield would be to modify that handicap ramp parking along the entrance terrace as they suggest and we discussed. I think that's really the only real action item here. Am I getting that right, folks?
You mean of the other inputs, Charles?
Yeah.
Well, there's the stuff from the DPW. Don't know.
No, I just meant for a disability Greenfield for this
Yes.
this one document.
Yep.
I will now read correspondence from the review committees in town. This is the recommendation from Eric, Director of Planning and Development. Recommendations: if the board is inclined to approve the application, then the Department of Planning and Development recommends the following conditions of approval. 1, the applicant shall follow all requirements in the review memo from the Department of Public Works.
Excuse me, Charles, just a second.
Yep.
Just wanted to point out there's an amended version of that.
Of the DPW report or Eric's report?
Eric's. He gave an updated version. I'm not sure exactly where it's
I
different.
don't know if I have it. Do you have it?
Yeah. I
Handy?
don't know how to share it. But I have it in
Well,
paper in front of me, but
well, you could read it into the record.
I'll tell you what, if you go along and reading that, and I'll see where it varies.
Okay. So the applicant shall follow all the requirements in the review memo from the Department of Public Works dated September 22nd, 2021. The applicant shall revise the zoning summary tables on sheets 1 and 2 of the submitted plan set with the requirements of the GC district. New light poles shall not exceed 15 feet in height. The applicant shall submit 3 full-size copies of the revised site plan set to the Department of Planning and Development within 30 days of approval. Zoning district. The above referenced parcels located within the GC zoning district and the RA zoning district, which is split with more than one zoning district. The district uses the less restrictive can be moved 50 feet into the more restrictive zone. Properties to the north and east are zoned GI. Properties to the south and west are zoned urban residential. I don't think that there's no issues in that relative to what we're looking at here, right, Tony? I mean,
No, I can't blame Mark because he didn't do this, but for some reason, we grabbed the wrong setback information and show it on the plan. So we didn't show the GC zoning district, and Eric can chime in if I'm misstating, but I think that's my understanding. As far as both districts, it's really unclear. I probably don't have the information that Eric has. Looking at the zoning map, it's very unclear on where the urban residential comes in, but I got a feeling it's way to the south, because when I look at the zoning map, it looks to me like most of the improved area is in the general commercial zone, and the property cord for that says general commercial zone. So we'll show both, but it was really unclear. And you know, going to the GIS, the property thing, I can't find a way of actually clicking that boundary so it show up on there. So we will do both of that. It's not an issue, you know, because we have that non-conforming dimension, but we're not changing that or making anything worse. So I don't believe it's an issue. It's just something that we need to clean the plan up on.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Use. The applicant is proposing the redevelopment of the former Red Barn grocery store to consolidate its programs to one location. The building use will change from being grocery store to offices, a food pantry, dry cold storage. Proposed improvements include new accessible entry, patio, parking areas, loading areas, lighting, landscaping, utility services. All proposed uses are allowed by right within the GC district, requiring site plan approval from the planning board. Parking. This is I don't even know if I need to really read this because it's already been addressed, but I will. The applicant has proposed to add an additional 35 off-street parking spaces to what is currently there for a total of 75 spaces. The applicant has not provided a parking summary.
Excuse me, Charles.
But you have required a parking summary.
And
yes,
that's the revision in his October 6th change, is that he says the applicant has provided it.
Okay.
Just let you know.
Okay. Setbacks we discussed, and that's going to be addressed in the drawings. Open space screening. The minimum landscaped open space requirement under current standards of the zoning ordinance for the GC district is 0. excluding wetlands and steep slopes greater than 15%. The project will retain a significant percentage of open space after improvement. Applicant is proposing 6-foot-high white vinyl fence in front of the building for screening. Did you talk about that, Tony?
I did. Currently, there's an existing loading area. There's a blocked out, which must have been a door where they could have lifted stuff and put it into the second floor, which is the main floor. And there's a door that gets you into the basement. Well, we won't have anything to go on to the top floor because that's all going to be offices in that area.
Right.
But we want to utilize that existing little loading dock area. Well, it's just an open door. There was a scissor lift there, but we're not going to use that. It's mostly for our mechanical room down there to give access to the equipment.
Yeah.
There's a storage room down there. There's a custodial room for stuff. IT is down there. So I don't think it'll be used very often, but it's accessible to that basement area. And so there was nothing there before. And so what we're doing is to put a vinyl fence there to block that that area, so it's not readily visible from the River Street property. And that's another area where, if they wanted to, they could do some annual planting outside of that fence to break the fence up. But we didn't show that. We just showed lawn area there. But we're trying to screen it more than what was there previously.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, I just was looking for what the graphic is proposing is 6 foot high. So, and is a 6 foot high, is that allowed in the front yard?
Well, we're not on the property line or anything.
Yeah, because you're not on the property line, you're behind the property line. There is no setback in GC anyway, right? So
I don't believe so.
Right.
I mean, we can take it down. I just thought it would be,
No, it's
something
fine.
the board would like to hide that. Like I said, I don't think it'll be used very much, and I don't think it's big equipment. It's probably, whatever comes in to bring in custodial cleaning products and stuff, or a maintenance man to look at the electrical or IT or something, which at the most probably is a van or something.
Yeah. Emily?
That is kind of the ugliest part of the property, not to be rude, but so it would be kind of nice to have the fence there, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's going to be landscaping in front of it, layers. It's good. The applicant has proposed to plant 14 new shade trees on the property for the project. A detail in the submitted plan has been provided. However, the types of shade trees are to be determined and not specified in the application materials. Lighting, the applicant proposes to remove and replace 2 existing lighting poles, as well as removing and replacing lighting on the building for the project. Spaces for the new light poles and building mounted site lighting have not been provided in the submitted plan set. But we have,
you have it now.
But we have it now, right? Signage, the applicant has not provided any information on proposed signage for new facility other than the location of the freestanding sign. Any goes on to sort of describe the various issues around permitting signs, and you'll do that as you move through the process. I don't necessarily have to read all that.
Yeah, I think the intention is just to meet the code, but anything that varies that the building inspector is uncomfortable, they'll send us back for a special permit.
Right.
We just don't have that design at this point, but with everything else is going on, we wanted to make sure that we showed the board where we intend to place that. It meets the ordinance. It's off the right of way. It's not going to be over 50. It's not going to be over the 15 foot or all of those freestanding requirements. So
right.
Yeah. So I think we're good there if the board is okay with the location.
Yeah, the location seems fine. Anybody have any comments about the location of the sign? Okay, moving on. No comments from the health director. No comments from the fire prevention officer. From Alan Torog at the DPW. Dated September 22nd, 2021. The Department of Public Works has reviewed the proposed site plan dated 9/3/21 from SVE Associates for the redevelopment of 95 River Street from grocery store to offices, food pantry, and dry cold storage for Community Action of Pioneer Valley Incorporated, and has the following comments. Stormwater management. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing dry well and install 2 new deep sump catch basins and tie them directly into an existing drainage manhole off of River Street. This will require a stormwater connection permit from the DPW. The proposed site changes will be an improvement over existing conditions by reducing the amount of stormwater runoff from the site and allowing more infiltration. A portion of the existing hard packed gravel replaced with loam and plantings. Access. The applicant is proposing to widen the southern curve to allow for two-way traffic flow in and out of this location. This will require an access permit from DPW. Parking, the applicant is proposing to add 35 additional off-street parking spaces to what is currently there for a total of 77 spaces. The applicant has not indicated what the parking need is. It should clarify this and how many employees will be working at any one time to ensure adequate off-street parking is provided. New water services, the applicant is proposing a new 2-inch domestic water service, a new 4-inch fire line, which will require non-residential water connection permits from the DPW. Details. The water main detail listing the city's accepted water goods on sheet 9 of the plan set is incorrect with regard to the required water meter. The city now requires Badger Caudral disc series meters with integral LCD encoder MTU for drive-by reading for services 2 inches or less. A water meter is not required for the fire line. And then required permits for DPW, site access 150, excavation trench permit 200, non-residential water connection for 2-inch service $1,000 plus $2,000 tapping fee, non-residential water connection for 4-inch fire line $1,500 fee, stormwater connection permit $125. Seems pretty clear. You've addressed the parking issues, I think, Tony,
Yes.
right?
Yes, we have.
So that's good. So we can incorporate Eric's recommendation to that you adhere to all these recommendations.
Yeah, we're fine with those.
DPW. Great.
Yep. Yep.
That's it for departmental review comments. Any other comments from the members of the board at this point? George?
Thanks, Charles. Yeah, Tony, I thought the location of the bicycle parking is great. I may have missed the detail about the type of parking that was going to be. I didn't know if it's going to be inverted U's or is that clear? Kind of look like that, but
I haven't. Yeah, that's kind of our symbol. I didn't specify it specifically. I was kind of trying to let the client work with the contractor and let them have that discretion. But I try to do that as opposed to actually specifying, unless it's a municipal project, what exactly they should put in. They need to put in 2, and those locations seem appropriate, but I didn't get into the actual model type or specify it.
And the reason I mentioned that, I often see the kind of the wave one that kind of looks like the U's, but they're really much less functional for actual secure bicycle parking. So the inverted U's are, it sounds like you're familiar with those, Tony, that they're really effective.
Okay,
so,
something to know.
Or something of that type.
Okay.
So that you have a separate place to lean each bike and secure it.
Right.
So
right, as opposed to being flipped over and having Yeah, it's just harder to, it's not as functional for those waves, I understand.
Right.
Okay,
Emily, Natty, anything from you folks here?
No, you've been super comprehensive for me. Thank you, Tony.
oh, you're welcome, thanks.
Yeah, I'd agree. This is a beautiful site plan, well thought out, sensitively landscaped, and it's going to take what's currently sort of a blighted property and just turn it into something really, functional and beautiful and provide essential services for Greenfield. So it's great. Nice work. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to approve the application of community action of Pioneer Valley to allow for the redevelopment of the Red Barn grocery store.
Is that
I'll second that. And for further discussion, should we attach any conditions to this? I can think of we want to reference the disability Greenfield suggestion to modify the accessible parking by the patio to make that all sort of one walk-off level. What else was there?
DPW
Integrate Eric's,
Yeah, right.
Eric's recommendations.
Yeah, integrate all of Eric's recommendations and Alan Torog's recommendations from the DPW, which is redundant because that was one of Eric's recommendations.
Right.
Any future sign has to be permitted probably through the ZBA, I'm guessing.
If it's outside of the ordinance. or
Outside, right.
non-conforming
Outside
to the
yeah,
ordinance.
right. Yep.
Did we want to say anything about that light shielding for the spillover?
Yes.
So,
Yep. So lighting along that northern boundary, those pole lights should be
I've lost connection, sorry.
those lights along the north edge should be shielded so they don't spill light onto the property to the north. Are you back, Tony? Can you hear me? Okay, I guess not.
I can see him.
Yeah. I think there's the bus stop as a future consideration that would have to be considered by probably the FRTA and the DPW down the road if they decide they want to go to do that, provide that. That's not really a condition of our approval.
No.
No, because we like that.
Right.
I don't know if you can hear me, everyone, but I've kind
Yeah,
of
we
lost
can hear you.
connection. I can't hear anything.
Oh,
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
he said he can't hear us.
Oh, he can't hear us.
Correct.
All right. So, do you want to just read those back quickly, Emily, the motion, and then reread back those conditions?
Can I ask one other? As
Sure,
far
George.
as specifying the nature of the bicycle parking, again, I don't know if that was the board's consensus or not, but
well, so you would want them to submit a cut on the on the bicycles so that it's not really a condition for approval so much, is it?
it's up to the board. But
I
I
lost
was
connection. I can't hear him.
I was suggesting. Go ahead.
What I perceive, George, is that you're suggesting that it be the vertical bicycle parking instead of the wave, so that it ensures secure parking.
Correct. The inverted U's is what it's often
All
referred
right,
to
yeah,
as.
so, yeah, that can be, that makes sense to make a condition for that, yep.
Okay, so I would like to make a revised motion again to approve the application of community action of Pioneer Valley for their redevelopment plan of the former Red Barn grocery store, conditioned upon the ADA suggestions that have been provided for the parking spaces, to make sure that all of the entrances and the ramps are one grade and level. Also conditioned upon the integration of air recommendations, which is also inclusive of the DPW's recommendations. And also conditioned upon the fact that if any type of sign posting is outside of the ordinance, that they receive a special permit from the ZBA. Conditioned upon the fact that lighting along the northern boundary should be shielded so as not to flash light up to the northern side. And conditioned upon the fact that, conditioned upon the requirement of having inverted bicycle parking.
Excellent.
Inverted U's. Inverted U's.
Inverted use bicycle parking.
Use.
Oh, use. See, I put use.
Use.
Thank you, George. Okay.
Right,
How would I
That's an
spell that?
inverted U's, that's an upside down sheep.
Uh,
I'm gonna put it like that in the notes, and you're gonna have to fix it next week, Robert.
Okay. All right. I will second that.
Okay.
Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, I'll take a roll call for this. George Tlemcen,
yes, aye.
Emily Esch,
Yes.
Nathaniel Hussey,
Aye.
Yes.
Charles Roberts, aye. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank-
I lost connection, so hopefully you didn't need me to say anything. So
We didn't. We didn't. You'll read about it in the paper tomorrow.
I tell you, WebEx doesn't love me. It's really difficult. But thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a
you.
good night.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you so
Good
much.
night. Take care. Good night.
Thank you, Elaine, for typing inverted U in the chat. Appreciate that.
Wait, that's there. I didn't see the chat. I gotta see this now.
I liked Emily's inverted bicycle parking.
Thank you.
I was imagining George standing on his head, parked his
Right.
All right. Last order of business is the A&R on Francis Street. I don't have a copy of this to put up on the screen, so we just have to look at our individual copies here. Did anybody go visit this site? I'm not even sure where Francis Street is. George?
Yes, I visited the site.
Okay.
It's
Emily?
just south of Valley Medical.
Just south of Valley Medical. Okay.
Yeah, the portion of the property that's being in question is all wooded, and I'm pretty sure if it's not wetland, it's pretty darn close. Did some landscaping there years ago.
And do we have a sense of what is being proposed? I was a bit confused by this.
It
So
looks to me like it's a jointly owned portion of, or I should say, it's a jointly owned parcel between Lovett and Hollins, and it looks as though the intent is to transition ownership over to Hollins only. That's my understanding of it.
But on one of them, it says to be conveyed by Hollins to Lovett. One says Lovett to Hollins, one says Hollins to Lovett. Sounds like a double play combination.
Yeah, it almost looks like they're flip-flopping, or maybe they're
It does.
getting married and doing tax planning.
It does look like they're exchanging what they already have.
Well, they're taking this. They're taking this. These two lots.
Oh, I see what it is. Sorry.
No, go ahead, because I was just going to try and wade my way through it and figure it out as I talked.
Okay, so Lovett, if I'm looking at my sheet here that I have. So Lovett owns the property directly underneath of what's going to be transferred. Sorry, Hollins owns the property directly above what Lovett owns, and vice versa. So it looks like they're somehow they both own on either side of Francis Street. And then somehow back in the day, they accidentally ended up being crisscrossed. And so now it's like they're just trying to flesh it out. So they own straight tracts of land instead of.
What an oddball situation.
So that's not how, at least this plan has that, yes. Based on Main Street GIS, the property is co-owned.
Okay, I missed that.
Can someone read, I can't quite make it out, the note to the left of the plan?
Yeah,
'Cause it does say C note.
The 14,535 square foot parcel shown hereon is intended to be combined with the 15,567 square foot parcel at 14 Francis Street to create one lot of 30,102, which means that the one that is directly north of 14 Francis, which is Lovett, would actually become one parcel. So this is a consolidation of parcels for Lovett and another consolidation of parcels for Hollins.
Right.
And the reason why they're doing that, and this is again my understanding, is that that parcel that is not currently built upon is a jointly owned parcel. They individually are co-owners of the parcel as it exists.
Right, and it looks like two families married. And so maybe it's just parsing it out now.
So they're dividing that big parcel and then granting it to each other and making two
Correct.
parcels.
Kind of. They own it together, so they're granting their half to the other person so that they end up as a whole.
Right.
Instead of being 50-50.
Yep. Well, so what we look at is, does it have frontage? It's got frontage. It's got access. Looks pretty straightforward now that we understand it.
Thanks for talking that out, guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Motion to accept this A&R.
Well, we don't actually have to approve this, right?
We endorse it.
We endorse it.
I mean, I guess this isn't just simply discussion, so I can wait until we vote, but.
I've made every motion, guys. Come on.
I make a motion to endorse the plan as stated.
Thank you.
I'll second that. Did you have some further discussion, Maddie?
Well, I guess if they were to attempt to build on that piece of property, assuming that it is buildable, they would have to do it together as co-owners. So the way that this is playing out is they're dividing the property in half, and they each get 50% effectively, 15,000 square feet, which then gives them an additional parcel adjacent to their current. I guess my question is, if there was going to be development on one or both of those parcels, would we be seeing this again?
Well, it would probably come through as a site
I mean,
plan review. Yeah,
We'd see it again, but not in this capacity because we're
We-
not changing property lines again.
right. It would come before us as like a site plan review for some sort of a multifamily development,
Or it could be an ADU.
or it could be an ADU. But that's not, that doesn't have any bearing on whether we endorse this or not. It's just
Sure.
interesting. It's always interesting to sort of imagine
Right.
what people are thinking. What are they thinking? Is it nefarious? Yeah.
We're not reading their soul, huh?
I guess.
All right.
I'm
So we got a
looking
motion. We got a second. We've had some discussion. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Let's take a vote. All in favor of endorsing this A&R? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
I move to have the chair sign on behalf of the board.
It's already in there, George.
It's already
it?
in
All right.
there. But we
Oh,
still have to
missed
vote
it.
on it. We still have to
Sorry.
vote on it and discuss it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just in the minutes. I apologize, George. Thank you. Please make that motion.
So moved.
We need a second.
second.
Second. Ah, you got it, Natty.
Now, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain. Okay. Thus concludes our meeting. Board and staff reports. Anything of interest from folks out there?
No.
It was actually a faster meeting than I thought because we kept getting those emails from Eric and I was like, oh my God, are we getting more and more stuff?
No,
And then-
it's good.
When I finally looked at it, I was like, oh.
Yep. So our next meeting date will be October 20th. And with that, we can adjourn.
So
Are you
moved.
making that motion? Oh, no.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right.
Discussion? No.
None.
All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Unanimous. Good night. Thank you.